series. Today, our workshop is on dementia. We have covered the topics the home, age-friendly, living longer, then went on to design for products and services, mobility, and today dementia. Today we will also know who the winners of the Innovation Awards are. Our ambassador, Hugh Elliott, was willing to announce the winners, but unfortunately, due to a last-minute urgent matter, won't be able to be with us, so the pleasure will fall on our director, Nick Greenwood. Please let me remind you about our networking session on the 6th of May. You can register on the website and express your interests in what institution, company, research centre or person you would like to meet. Please don't miss the date because the collaborations and business opportunities can arise easily there. As always, we say the Q&A is open from now. So please do post all your questions and comments on the chat box, and we will open a Q&A and debate after all the presentations. Today's session is being recorded, and we will send you a link with the video and the presentations after the workshop. And without further ado, we are going to start with our first speaker today. And today's panel starts with Professor Malcolm Cook. Malcolm is Professor of Building Performance Analysis at Loughborough University and Associate Dean for Research. He obtained a first degree in mathematics and completed his PhD in computational fluid dynamics, modelling of buoyancy-driven natural ventilation. As well as completing several UK research and innovation and EU-funded research projects, he has consulted for a wide range of projects worldwide, which have included design and simulation work for healthcare buildings, schools, theatres, and modern library buildings. Today he's going to present us the Dementia House design of BRE Trust. Good morning, Malcolm.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for that very warm welcome, Maria. I will now share my screen.
Can everybody except for our speaker turn the cameras off, please, and microphones? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you again, Maria. And as Maria says, I'm Malcolm Cook. I work at Loughborough University here in the UK. And this morning, I want to talk to you about the design of a dementia-friendly house, which we've called Chris and Sally's House, at the Building Research Establishment based in the south of the UK. I'm going to give a brief introduction to the project, and then most of my presentation will be a video in which other members of the research team will present this work. So the aim of the project was to design a dementia-friendly home with due consideration for indoor environmental quality. As Maria said in her introduction, I'm a building physicist, but was part of a big team comprising the Building Research Establishment, biological psychologists, ergonomists, and architects. And I'd like to acknowledge the full team with those names on the screen here. So, designing care environments for people with dementia can be a complex and challenging task, of course, because of the multifaceted aspect of dementia patients. So which design features are likely to be helpful, which are going to be unhelpful? All of this needs to be taken into consideration when we look at the design of these environments. And when we began this project, we found that the current guidelines were either inconsistent or weren't always grounded in scientific evidence. So we wanted to undertake some fundamental research to understand what was important in a living environment for dementia sufferers and their carers. So my colleagues undertook interviews and scoping studies to develop what we call personas to better understand how people with dementia appropriate their environments. Based on these personas, we worked with architects to develop the design of the dementia-friendly home at the Building Research Establishment. In addition, and this is my key part of the research, we designed the building to be naturally ventilated, which enabled us to have a low energy solution and to take advantage of fresh air ventilation with a combination of automatically controlled and manually controlled windows. So as I say, this helped us to reduce the energy consumption of the house whilst providing a healthy indoor environment with a good supply of fresh air. So I'm now going to move on into the video where you will have a walk through the house led by my co-researchers.
In the UK, there are more than 850,000 people with dementia, and that number is expected to increase to over 1 million by 2025. There is increasing focus on how the home and the home environment can support people to age well. So to take on this challenge, we've established a multidisciplinary team from Loughborough University, Liverpool John Moores University, Halsall Lloyd Partnerships and the BRE Trust.
We're investigating ways in which people can remain in their own homes even if they develop symptoms of dementia. A dementia-friendly environment in a residential scale building, by which I mean a domestic setting, a home. So in the house project, it's a 2-bedroom house. And so we tried to base it on the idea that who would actually inhabit this house. So we have 2 personas in our house. We have Chris and Sally. So what visitors to the house will see is how Chris and Sally's life journey is represented in the house, and perhaps how they might need to adapt the house in the future as their symptoms change and develop.
So our challenge is to ensure that we provide a thermally comfortable environment with good indoor air quality, but without excessive uses of energy. Elderly people may have less disposable income, and therefore it's important to ensure that what we do doesn't have a cost premium attached to it. So the benefit of this research is to help not only the UK, but also people around the world who suffer from dementia. Designers of these types of homes around the world will benefit from the research that's done at BRE with Loughborough University.
Welcome to the story of Chris and Sally's house. My name is Bill Halsall. I'm an architect, and I'm a landscape architect. And I'm senior partner at Halsall Lloyd Partnership, Architects and Designers. So a few years ago, Rob MacDonald of Liverpool John Moores University, who's joined us today, and myself, set out to do some research into design for dementia. We carried out some research and design, particularly through an organisation called Dementia Action. We produced 3 books, which you can see there. Now, the point of the research really, in the first place, was to assist people to live well with dementia and to sustain their capacity in their own homes for longer. So it specifically addresses the domestic environment and people's own environment, you know, the streets and towns and neighbourhoods where they live. Those publications obviously drew a certain amount of attention, and then we were approached by the BRE to get involved in the dementia home. So this is the building. This is actually was never a house at all. It actually was an old stable block forming part of the estate at Watford, the demonstration project. Sorry, the innovation park there. Now the bit with the green line round it is the bit that we were offered to convert into the dementia home. A 2 up, 2 down cottage is quite a sort of typical building form in the UK, whether it occurs in a little terrace street or whether it occurs in a village. This kind of 2-room arrangement is quite historic. So we reimagined the Chris and Sally's house as being a two-down cottage, and we speculated about what was wrong with it, and you can see some of the things there. Obviously, they're finding difficulty with the bathroom, there are incontinence issues, stairs are a struggle, use of the garden are poor, and so on, thresholds, lighting levels inadequate, ventilation poor, windows hard to open, and on a sunny day there's glare and overheating, and there's restricted headroom at first floor. If we move up to the next slide, you can see that's the ground floor there, that's at the first floor. So the proposed interventions into the form, well, first of all, we opened up the space in between the two rooms, and this is the ground floor. And I think the most obvious thing is that it's become very open plan. So it's in effect a single space with very few doors, and it's accessible lift or provision for one in the future. So we're trying to anticipate future needs and make it flexible in the future. You can see there also that there's a small room with a blue bed in, which is categorized as a day room, but is it's the design thinking is that's a flexible space. It could be a designing room, it could be a hobby room, it could be a quiet room, or it could be a room for end-of-life care. And you can see there that there's a track so that people can be helped into the shower room at the back there. And obviously the kitchen and living room are all visually connected. We've got round the low ceilings through the design. There's a small tea kitchen area there, which adjoins the main bedroom, which is there to help nursing care or making a cup of tea or sorting out medication, that kind of thing. We've got another bathroom, shower room, and the second bedroom. So this shows the floor arrangement on the ground floor. I think one of the things this shows quite clearly is that those yellow arrows, we've designed it so that from key points in the dwelling, the WC is visible. And this is one of the things that came out of our research, is that people feel more comfortable if they know where the facilities are and are less likely to have accidents. You can see the red circles represent wheelchair turning circles, so the whole thing is wheelchair accessible. Upstairs, the master bedroom obviously has the vision cone to the shower room and the WC there, and you can see the lift lobby opening onto the landing. So some of these features which came from the initial building that we were given. So you can see on the right-hand side that there's some high-level windows, which of course you wouldn't normally have. But this is really trying to demonstrate quite a lot of things in one demonstration house. You wouldn't necessarily want to do all of these things in your own house. You might not want that disruption. You might not want the radicalness of the change. But it's a compendium of ideas for people to pick at. And so this is the kitchen dining room. We've got open plan arrangement. We've got the legibility between the rooms. We've got easy access to the WC and shower room with good visibility for orientation. Lift access to the first floor. We've minimized the numbers of doors. So if you imagine somebody with dementia arriving at this house, they can immediately see where everything is. They're not confronted by a hallway with lots of different doors and having to make choices. The design has walkability as well as wheelchair access, so you can make your way through the home by hanging onto bits of furniture or bits of worktop. The kitchen has glass doors and drawers for visibility of kitchen equipment. It makes things easier to find. We've got high and low work surfaces to accommodate people who might be in a wheelchair. We've got rounded corners everywhere to minimise risks from falls. We've got view to green out of the window. Put a new window in there to get a view to green. View to green reduces stress for anybody, but particularly for people living with dementia. We have good natural and artificial light. We have tonal contrast between the floor, walls, doors, kitchen unit, fronts, and worktops. This is a scale of 100 points, really, and we're trying to get 30% difference in light reflectance values between adjoining surfaces to help perception of space for somebody with cognitive impairment. And there's, of course, there's personalisation and memories to make it feel like a home. You see, we move through to the lounge. Similar principles, open plan, view to green, high level of ambient and task lighting. Little details like curtains with a highlighted edge for ease of use, and the contrasting arms on the armchairs. So there's quite a lot of detail you can go into in this kind of design. Again, the view to green out of the window. The day room, obviously a quieter room. You can see the wheelchair. One of the things that we did was to put wheelchair charging points at key positions in the dwelling. So this is one that's in a bedroom. There's also one in a living room. So we're kind of making it easier for people to recharge the wheelchair, any time of the day or night. On the right-hand side, there's a pocket door between the day room and the shower room for flexibility between alternative uses of the room. And we have blackout blinds and things like that to help people to be in terms of their cycle through the day and night. This is the shower room and bathroom. The doors on your left are intended as a cupboard for the washing machine. One of the research pointers is that people can find the sound of a washing machine to be disturbing, so we've put it in a separate room of its own. The bathroom itself, of course, is kitted out with all the aids that you might expect. And to be fair, the shower room is actually more difficult to make homely, actually, because it does have to have all these facilities. But the appliances, the white are white, so they stand out against the floors and the walls. And again, this is for visibility and the light reflectance values. And the master bedroom there. So again, contrasting tonal values between the floor and the bed and the walls and the curtains and so on to help that interpretation of space. And the guest bedroom, which observes obviously similar principles.
Thank you all very much. So I hope that's given you a good insight into Chris and Sally's house at the Building Research Establishment. I'll be on the call for the rest of the time. So happy to answer any questions towards the end. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you so much for this example of design towards dementia. Really good. And as I said at the beginning, we will be circulating the videos and slides so everybody can go back to them. Our next speaker is Daniel Berman. Daniel leads the global health team at Nesta Challenges. In the healthy aging space, Nesta Challenges has been working with the UK's Alzheimer's Society since November 2019 to develop a longitude prize on dementia that will incentivize innovators to harness cutting-edge technologies to empower and solve problems for people affected by dementia. Before Nesta, Daniel was a consultant for the World Health Organization in Ethiopia on a local pharmaceutical production project. Previously, he was at Médecins Sans Frontières for more than 16 years. His final assignment was Executive Director of Médecins Sans Frontières in Southern Africa, based in Johannesburg. And we've got Daniel with us. Good that the technology hasn't failed. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Maria. And thank you for inviting me to this event and being part of the Healthy Aging workshop series. I think hopefully the participants will see quite a synergy between Professor Cook's presentation and mine, because we're coming at this from a very, very different aspect. And the big picture introduction to my presentation is the first presentation showed how you could design to optimize for elderly people and people with dementia. And mine is looking at creating a contest, actually, to see how we can bring modern technology and AI to assist people and kind of put them in control of their own life. Next slide, please. So my story actually begins about 300 years ago, because the reason it's called the Longitude Prize, this is a series of prizes that we have recreated. And just in way of introduction, prizes are competitions between innovators. So in this case, the Longitude Prize was initially set up in 1714 to overcome a phenomenon that had haunted sailors and ship owners for centuries. In fact, between 1550 and 1650, 1 in 5 ships traveling between Portugal and India, for example, were lost at sea because there was no way to track longitude. And so this was a problem that was vexing and was extremely difficult at the time. So what happened was, if you jump ahead, both the sailors and ship owners lobbied the British Parliament of the time, and they created an international competition. Now, 20,000 was the prize, but that represents about 1.5 million in today's money, 1.5 million UK pounds, to be clear. Ultimately, the 1714 prize was won by someone called John Harrison. He was a self-educated carpenter and clockmaker, so this really drew somebody into a challenge that wouldn't have been involved otherwise. And he won it by creating the chronometer, a marine chronometer, which was basically a clock that would work at sea. So it could very precisely track time. Next slide, please. So now jump ahead to the year 2014, and it was the Prime Minister at the time, Prime Minister Cameron, who launched this project, and they decided to do a 300th anniversary of the Longitude Prize, so bring it back to life, and put out to the public 6 possibilities, and let the public decide on a BBC documentary. Each of these ideas was presented. So super quickly, flight was no carbon flight. How could that be? Could somebody come up with a solution? Food was more sustainable ways of agriculture. Paralysis was to overcome lower limb paralysis. And water was focused on increasing supplies, things like desalination, to increase supply of water that could be drunk by humans. And so the winning initial idea was antibiotics. And so in 2014, we actually launched Longitude Prize to come up with a rapid diagnostic test to better use diagnostics. So that brings us to the dementia story, which was the runner-up in terms of the public vote. Next, please. So 2 organizations, ours, Nesta Challenges. So Nesta, our parent organization, is a charity focused on innovation for social good. And Nesta Challenges has 40 professionals that only work on these international competitions or prizes. And we're known for our very in-depth research, which you will see what we did for this Dementia Prize. And the Alzheimer's Society actually initially came to us with this idea. And their mission is very clearly focused on people living with dementia and their carers. Next slide, please. So the Longitude Prize on dementia, when I say development, it means how do we construct this international competition? Because where we are today is actually at the beginning of this week, we completed a design. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit about, well, what did we learn during that research and design process? So just what we did was we had about 46 interviews, and we put together a steering group, which had people from the healthcare industry, investors, people that were working on aging tech, as well as funders. And we not only interviewed 46 people, but we also had a lot of direct contact with both innovators and people affected by dementia. When I say people affected, it's people living with dementia and their carers. We actually, believe it or not, did 5 virtual workshops. And as you can imagine, we now have a lot of experience doing these type of events virtually. In this case, it was super challenging, but actually did work, having people with dementia talk about their own wants, needs, and challenges. And we also had consultations with what you could call big tech, IBM, Amazon, Google, and we talked to some additional partners that could come in to help fund the prize. And the decision was to focus on something really quite innovative, so to bring something new rather than to scale up something existing. Next slide, please. So our key findings in terms of users, I'm going to let you just read the quote on the left for a second. So the bottom line here is much of the tech out there to help people living with dementia was about monitoring them. But what people really want is to be in the driver's seat, and they want technologies that they can actually use. So computers are not that helpful. Standard tablet applications are not that helpful. And they found that they were not, to be honest, impressed with the technology that was offered. You know, the things like monitors that could know when they fell down. Those are important, but it wasn't really designed for the person living with dementia. Next slide, please. So in terms of the barriers to innovation, we've quoted here one of the innovators or technologists who's trying to come up with problems. And the problem is with machine learning is to gather a big enough data set and to actually be able to have access to people living with dementia. How does somebody who's in an academic center or a small company or a larger company really have access? Because you need literally hundreds of users with hundreds of thousands of data points in order to create things that are quite useful. And so you see on the right that there was also a challenge of collecting this data, having access to people, and there was very little market incentive to create these problems. Next, please. So this just brings everything together and says, okay, before we actually design this international prize, how are we defining this particular problem? And so in a nutshell, it is that we wanted to create some tools, so some electronic tools that people could use themselves. And at the end of the day, it would allow them to stay home longer, just like we saw in the last presentation. That was from a design perspective. These are tools which will give them information and assist them to basically daily tasks, but then also to do things that they really want to do that makes life worth living. Next, please. Okay, so here is what we are actually going to ask innovators to do to win the grants and to win the grand prize. So the Dementia Prize will be awarded to creators of breakthrough technology that learn from a person with dementia, adapting and compensating for their condition as it progresses, and enabling them to continue living independently longer. So examples, tools that can help people communicate. So for example, for word searching, and make social interactions, whether virtual or in person, easier, or carrying out daily activities. And the winning technology will be tailored to individual users and adapt during the progression of their disease. Next, please. So this is the design that we have come up with. So just to be clear, we haven't launched this prize. In fact, this is the first time that we are presenting this idea to people who have not been involved in the research and design process. But we are now preparing to launch this prize, hopefully by the end of the year or early next year. So very, very briefly, the idea is to create a cohort of innovators that we take through a process. So anybody can apply, and then we would give 20 awards of £80,000 each. And then we would offer a lot of non-financial support to help those innovators to really refine their ideas. And then we would pick 5 finalists, which would each get 300,000. And then we would have quite a significant period where they had even more intense support from world experts in the trickiest parts of this technology to overcome. And finally, there would be a winner of £1 million that was the ultimate winner. Next slide, please. So I'm coming to the end of my remarks, but I just wanted to give you an idea of, well, how are we going to decide if there's all these innovators, companies working to try to win this prize? What are we going to base our assessment on? And so the first thing is it needs to be breakthrough innovation that helps people live independently for longer. So we're actually going to look at metrics for proving this and documenting. And we will have external evaluations at the end for the 5 leaders. Adapting to user needs to deliver tailored support. So it means helping them to both maintain their well-being and quality of life. There needs to be high standards of technical excellence, and there needs to be a critical path to sustainability and scale. So that means this has to be a product that could be feasible to roll out, and so that and also obviously affordable for people to access. They wouldn't necessarily have to pay themselves, but within the business plan that you'd have to present, you'd have to show how it was paid for. Next slide. So the status as of now, as I mentioned, we've completed this design. There is something called the Longitude Prize Committee with renowned individuals that have guided us for the antimicrobial resistant existing prize that was launched in 2014. So they have put their backing to this project. So far, we've raised 3 million of an 8 million budget. And our additional partners outside of the UK we're in quite extensive conversations with Canadian organizations, and also Australian organizations have expressed interest. So we're now in dialogue with additional funders, and the plan is to launch the prize in the next calendar year. Last slide, please. Next one. So I just want to express my thanks to our key collaborators. So it's Fiona Carragher from the Alzheimer's Society based in the UK, and Colin Capper, who leads up their innovation. And it's actually, when I mentioned that there's been £3 million raised to out of the 8, that actually comes from individual donors, a few people actually, that are supportive of the Alzheimer's Society. And then I'd also like to thank my research team. This project was led by Sarah Holiday, and my contact information is here, and I know we're going to be having a Q&A coming up at the end of the presentations.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Let's see if we've got Basque expressions of interest and collaborations with you. That would be great. We're going to go to our next speaker today. Sarah Daniels is our next speaker. Sarah is consultant therapist, health and social care lead at Imperial College London, specializing in rehabilitation for people with complex neurological conditions, working within a range of clinical settings in the UK and in the USA. Sarah contributed to the strategic redesign of specialist neuro-rehabilitation services within Northwest London, leading various teams in their transfer to Imperial College Healthcare NHS Trust to establish Charing Cross Neuro-Rehabilitation Unit and Specialist Neurological Rehabilitation Outreach Service. More recently, Sarah moved into the field of care research, joining UK Dementia Research Institute, Care Research and Technology Centre in 2019. The UK Dementia Research Institute is the single biggest investment the UK has ever made in dementia, thanks to £290 million from founding funders, the Medical Research Council, Alzheimer's Society, and Alzheimer's Research UK. So that was quite difficult to read, actually, Sarah.
Thank you very much for a very comprehensive introduction, and thank you for the invitation. So thank you for the invitation today. I'm going to share my screen. I can. I did have it. Where's it gone? This is what we rehearsed for. And okay, can you see?
We can see perfectly. It's come and it's perfect.
And it's not in presenter mode.
No, it's the way it's got to be. It's perfect.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. As Maria explained, my background is clinical. I'm an occupational therapist by training, and I've joined Imperial very recently, really, to champion the translation of this care research that's currently sitting within an academic environment into the real world. And so I bring, I suppose, my experience of service design and service delivery to the programme. So I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes giving you a pretty rapid whistle stop of the kind of core elements of the programme, and particularly emphasising the role that human-centred design and partnership working has within our centre. So I think the case for change has been well laid out by the previous two presenters, and certainly the drivers here, increasing age of the population and the demands on health and social care are key here. Alzheimer's Society has also identified some of the kind of priorities for carers that have driven some of the work around the focus of the centre. So I suppose the question for us is, does technology have the answer? And coming on to this significant investment that Maria mentioned, this sort of came out of the Global Action Against Dementia Summit in 2015 that led to this significant commitment towards finding a solution for dementia globally. And David Cameron invested in the foundation of this Dementia Research Institute. So since then, we've established 6 centres throughout the UK. The focus had been primarily on scientific sort of discovery science and molecular science, in the hope that we could find a cure, a sort of pharmacological approach to treating and curing dementia. Sort of acknowledging that there was an awful lot of work to be done in supporting people with dementia here and now and in the shorter term. There's a commitment to founding a new centre on a slightly different brief, really focused on the role of emerging technologies and how they can be utilised to address some of the challenges that we've discussed. So I didn't mention David Sharp actually. So Bart is in charge of is director of the HQ and the whole institute. And David Sharp is a neurologist by background and based at Imperial, and he really championed this very complicated and ambitious program of work, which in an attempt to simplify it, looks something like this. So the vertical strands here are emerging new technologies, which I'll go through in a little bit more detail in a moment. And then these cross-cutting themes. So really at the core of the centre is this healthy home platform, which I will talk about. Just to say here, we're actually about to move into a new building that's part of the White City campus, which is part of Imperial College, and within that environment we've got half a floor shared with cardiovascular research on the other side, and we've built a living lab within there, which will be a real key part of the discovery parts of our work. So if we look at that in a little bit more detail, just to give you a flavour of the emerging technologies that we're working on. We've got biosensor program here, which are looking at hardware, particularly passive monitoring through the use of radar and building sort of micro devices for monitoring EEG within your ear. So these are opportunities to do more point of care diagnostics and treatment within the home environment. The similarly, the synthetic biology team here are using kind of novel and innovative approaches to synthetic biology to to address issues of infection, particularly UTI, and also looking at the microbiome of the bladder. And looking for other sorts of biomarkers that may give us more information about disease progression and the relationship between, at a mechanistic level, the relationship between the microbiome and disease. We've also got a group working on robotics, and they are working on chatbots, voice agents, user interface, and trying to sort of pull the whole system sort of together. There's also a strand looking at natural language processing. A core part of our work is focused down in Surrey, actually Surrey University, and that's led by Dirk Jan, who's a sleep specialist, and it's acknowledging not only the role that sleep plays, or rather the information that sleep can give us around the health and function of the brain, but also from a kind of care perspective, the impact of sleep disruption, sleep disorders on the person with dementia and their families. And finally, this strand here was looking very much at digital measures of function and behaviour, as well as newer, more sensitive measures of cognition. And the idea of this is that we can build that information into the kind of smart assistive devices that we've talked about earlier. This is the kind of team at the moment. So acknowledgements to them. It's very interdisciplinary with medics, engineers, computer scientists, and myself, coming from very much a service delivery perspective. So we've got quite a rich team coming together to progress through this development and validation of technologies and then ultimately to their application in the real world. So coming back to those cross-cutting themes, healthy home, human-centered design, and the translation side of things, the core part of the programme centres around smart technologies, but particularly around a platform that integrates different kinds of data and can start to build AI models that will lead us to more predictive models of care. So this particular system has already been established and run down in Surrey under a different project, but we inherited the project as part of the DRI foundation, or the Centred Foundation, and with that a cohort of 50 people down in Surrey and their historic data. So we've sort of landed on the ground running, if you like, even though we're relatively new. So the core system involves smart homes that are being processed and viewed, data being processed and viewed in a dashboard and then responded to by a monitoring team, which I will elucidate in a moment. In terms of the devices that we have set up in the home, most of these are commercially available, and the challenge, and we work a kind of interoperable system. So although we're using basic PIR sensors and smart plugs at the moment, they're device agnostic. So we're not wedded to any particular one. We're also developing new technologies, and particularly capabilities for edge processing. And this is the data box here that you see, and that's around enhancing our safety and security of the system. The way that our cohort is currently set up, we've got our 50 down in Surrey, and we over the next 2 years are expanding to 200, another 50 in Surrey, and another 100 within Hammersmith and Fulham, which is a borough within London. Unlike a lot of dementia studies, this particular programme is general dementia, mixed dementia types. We're not specifying particular Alzheimer's disease or any other particular pathology. We're also including people who lack mental capacity. The requirement is that they come onto the study with a study partner who may be a spousal carer or a son or a daughter, or even within our London cohort, we're looking at paid carers and social services carers. And then they go through a protocol of regular assessments every 3 months that includes questionnaires, biometric and biomarker data around blood and urine and imaging, not every 3 months, I should add the imaging, as well as mobility and physical function. And the kind of setup around the couple there, the study partner and the participant, is supported by commercial partners who deal with the installations and the main data processing. We have our study sponsors that are Surrey and Borders, and they provide the monitoring service and oversee the dashboard, and our clinical lead, Ramin, is a consultant psychiatrist, and he has overarching kind of clinical responsibility. And then the work that we're doing around data analytics and research is done within the core of the Dementia Research Institute. So the kind of data that we're getting at the moment, this is just a visual which gives you an idea of the multiple sensors and how over the course of a month we can start to see these kind of patterns. This period here on the left indicates nighttime, and you can see the activity going on during the night. If we look at that over a longer period of time, we can really see the kind of patterns emerging here. And this is a particularly interesting example. We have a group within a subset within our cohort called Minder Champions, and they work with us much more closely and allow us to get more detailed information from them. But we've got this amount of data, so 2 years worth of continuous historical data for most of our cohort, and that leaves us with 40,000 days of home monitoring. So this is really the kind of data that we need to start to build these deep learning AI models. And what we're trying to do is develop kind of predictive models of care need. And the focus here from us, from a clinical perspective, we're looking at sleep, infections, agitation and behaviour. We're interested in how these kind of measurements might enhance clinical reasoning and clinical decision making, where you're introducing a particular intervention and you want to monitor the effect. So the patterns that you can see here are kind of interesting. They carry us over, this is a 2-year period, and the cyclical patterns you can see here. This is nighttime. This is bathroom activity. This is actually somebody who follows a strict Islamic prayer routine. And I think it very nicely illustrates how sensitive the system is to picking up these changes and fluctuations in routine and habit. So another example which has been developed and tested by the group in Surrey is the UTI algorithm, and this is sort of built into our system. So through changes in behaviour and physiological information, we can see a potential risk. So that what I've highlighted in red here are the bathroom sensors, and so we've been monitoring increased bathroom activity over and above what we'd expect to see, and that would flag up, combined with temperature, body temperature, that would flag up a potential alert for a urinary tract infection that would trigger a response from our care monitoring team, and a series of decisions that would come from that. And the idea here, by an earlier intervention for people that might not necessarily be able to articulate this, means that we can respond sooner with the most appropriate intervention and hopefully avoid or at least avoid some hospital admissions as a consequence of de-escalation early enough. So coming back to that progression from development, validation and application, I think one of the things that sort of come actually through the previous 2 presentations is the importance of a human-centered design approach and how central that is to ultimate translation. So we're really lucky in that we've got a dedicated team of
Sorry, Sarah, we can't hear you. I don't know what, it just broke up there.
Can you hear me?
Now, yes, now, yes.
Okay, sorry, I think I was muted. Yeah, sorry, I was just saying about the design team, Helix Centre. So they really, throughout the whole process, are central to us understanding kind of core user needs, and through that, optimising engagement with the research project itself, but also making sure that the products and the system that we're producing is designed for ultimate end user experience. And they're doing that, obviously, ideally face-to-face, but over the last year, we've been doing a lot of work online with our Minded Champions. So thinking a step beyond service users or people living with dementia as users, we're kind of acknowledging here that ultimately, to address the needs of the most vulnerable and the most at risk of exclusion, we really need to work really closely with health and social care, primary care and social care, and in that sense work with them as users as well. And part of our approach here, where did I get to? Yeah, part of our approach here is trying to understand that stakeholders' priorities. We understand that people living with dementia want to remain independent, the best quality of life, and live in dignity for as long as possible. The people that are tasked to look after them are obviously, their priority is the overall health and well-being of the people that are in their care. They're particularly concerned with mitigating risk and also connecting complex systems of ecosystem of care providers, and to enable them and help them to make clinical decisions. Having access to real world data and real world assessment is really critical. From a commissioner's perspective, so ultimately who would be buying into this kind of digitally enabled system. We're interested in what commissioners of health and social care need and want from this kind of system. We know that they are focused on population health. There's a drive towards more data-driven service commissioning, particularly around addressing health equalities. We know that something needs to be sustainable and therefore needs to add value without compromising quality. From a research perspective, priorities, particularly being driven by the MRC and the DRI, are around understanding the disease mechanism, which hopefully would support future drug discoveries, not only by better understanding of the disease trajectory, but also this capability of being able to detect change over time. So potentially we've got an opportunity for a more sensitive measure of outcome with drug trials in the future. So if we can look at behavioural biomarkers and more sensitive cognitive measures, it's possible that we can be more nuanced in how we can develop and trial emerging drugs that are coming through medical research at the moment. So just to kind of drawing to a close here, I think really critically around that kind of ultimate translation is working in partnership. I think that's one of the messages I wanted to convey here is obviously we need to work in partnership with people living with dementia, but particularly around the people that are the current systems that are set up to support the most vulnerable in our communities. It's also part of the strength of our programme is that we are integrated and we're developing closer links with primary care and social care, and that allows us to access perhaps people in more deprived areas that previously would have been excluded from research studies. And so I see what we're working on here is really advancing this commitment that was made by the NHS in 2019 towards digitally enabled care, and hoping that through co-creation we can develop an evaluation framework that addresses user acceptance, ensures accessible systems, obviously basic standards of safety from a kind of reliability perspective as well as data security. The system needs to be scalable and it needs to be effective. And I think the key question that will be part of our focus over the next few years is, what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to deliver when we measure a system like this? Are we picking up advantages in systems and process? What are the advantages in measurement that we can get here? And what are the advantages of interventions? So I think in the future, when we're coming to evaluate these kind of emerging technologies, a challenge for us will be selecting the right outcome measures and being really clever about acknowledging the complexity of these kind of systems. And finally, obviously these systems need to be sustainable. Otherwise, there's a lot of investment going into something with not enough longevity. So drawing to a close there, I'd just like to thank you for listening and introduce you to Danielle, who is our centre manager and commercialisation manager, who is pushing for partnership opportunities and more collaborative working with more commercial providers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think there's going to be lots of questions afterwards. We're going to move on quickly because we're behind in time. And next we've got Itziar Vergara, Research Unit Manager at Biodonostia. I can hear now. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Maria.
Yes. Hi. Okay. Biodonostia Health Research Institute is a national and international reference in the field of health research, giving priority to promoting translational research and firmly backing innovation in medical and health technologies that lead to improvements in healthcare. Itziar graduated in medicine, specialized in family and community medicine, has a master's degree in public health from the University of California, Berkeley, and a PhD in medicine from the University of the Basque Country. Since 2011, She has been the head of the Primary Care and Integrated Health Organization Research Unit in Guipúzcoa. She's a member of the Spanish Research Network on Services and Chronicity, coordinator of the Primary Care Research Group and the Healthy Aging Research Group of Chronic Gune, and also leads the research line on frailty of the Biodonostia Health Research Institute Strategy on Aging. Itziar, can I see you? Can I hear you?
Hi, Maria. Yes, here I am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I can see you. You're going to...
Okay. Just 1 minute. Here I am. Now, can you see me?
Now we can see you. Good morning.
Okay, hi.
Good to see your faces.
Okay, yes, that's right. Well, okay, thank you for inviting me, Maria. So I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay with you.
That's perfect. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I think now you can see my full screen. That's okay?
We can see it. Yes, it's here.
Okay, thank you. Well, I want to start thanking you, Maria, for inviting me to be part of this workshop. I'm glad to sharing this this session with all of you. I want to share with you our experience at Biodonostia Health Research Institute. At this center in 2030, we defined aging as one of the strategic areas for research for us. And we were mainly interested in the concept of functional capacity, because in our understanding, this concept of functional capacity explains a lot of the health needs of aged population. Within this concept of functional capacity, we put our focus on frailty, because frail people, it's a group really appealing for us for a number of reasons. I want to stop just 1 second in the definition of frailty. Frail aged people, they are already independent people. They are not yet disabled, but they are highly vulnerable because they have lost part of their functional capacity and most of their functional reserve. This makes a group of very highly vulnerable people that may become easily disabled. And there is enough evidence as to know that if we are able to identify who is frail, we may intervene, trying to retard the onset of disability. So this is a very relevant health objective for us. So this is why we get so interested in this issue. And also, frailty is really appealing from the research point of view, because it's a very complex concept that may and should be taken from very different research perspective, from the basic one, also from the point of view of clinical research, and also from the perspective of the health services research. But also, as I have mentioned, frailty is really appealing and relevant for us as family physicians, because this is a great challenge that we face every day in our daily practices. That is to know from these people that we are visiting every day, we have two main questions: who is frail, and how can we know who is frail, and what can we do with these frail people to try to avoid the onset of disability, as I have said before. In order to try to answer to these big and huge questions, we developed a number of research projects during these years. To try to answer to the first one, which is who is frail, we have worked around several strategies to identify frail people. We have worked with questionnaires, and we have published the validation of a very popular questionnaire. We have also worked trying to identify good biomarkers to know who is related to frailty. But now I want to show you the result of one of these projects about a gadget that we have developed to measure functional performance. As you know, the most popular test to measure functional capacity are gait speed, the SPPD, and the time up and go test. We like the latter very much because this test is the easiest to be used in primary care premises because it's fast, it's simple, and it doesn't need a lot of, it doesn't need anything else but a chair and a clock. And also because it is highly sensitive to identify people who start to lose the functional capacity, well, due to muscle problems, but also due to mild cognitive decline. So we like this test. We use this test in our studies, and we use it also in the daily practice. But even though this is the easiest one to use, it's not that easy in real life. And here you can see a picture of one of the where we work, and this is one of our real patients. And this is, as you see, this is the space that we have to try people to do this test. We have the chair, we have some space, and we have a very old woman that was asked to perform this test. So this is not that easy to apply in a daily basis. And we are aware, and we had some evidence that the part of sitting and getting up from the chair explains a lot of the results of this test. This is why we came up with the idea of measuring the process of sitting and standing up from the chair, but measuring the pressure of this process, trying to define how is the model and the pattern of how people does sit and stand up from a chair. If you think now in old people that you know, you can figure this out easily, because we know that with people, they don't sit and stand up as we do. There are some differences, and that process, it was really useful for us. So this is why we developed this. It's like a cushion with a high number of pressure sensors that may be used in a chair, that we started to use as a research project, as I said, and we were able to see that our hypothesis was true, and the pattern of pressure change in frail people is different than the pattern of pressure change in robust people. So this idea, we think that may be useful in primary care premises to more easily identify who is frail and who is not. This idea has been protected, and now we are looking for industrial partners in order to develop an uploaded version of the cushion and explore how it can go ahead in the process of getting to primary care practices. This was to try to answer to the first question about the who is frail. For the second question of what can we do with frail people at primary care, we are working in a number of projects, mainly exploring the impact of interventions based on improvement of pharmacy prescription, because we know that polypharmacy has a huge impact in the development of frailty. We also are working in interventions based on physical exercise and also in interventions based on trying to improve the dietary pattern of frail patients. And at this point, we are also developing a clinical essay based in a multi-level intervention that includes these 3 lines of work: polypharmacy, physical exercise, and nutrients. And I will be happy to share with you the results of this project. Well, but during these years that we have been developing this research project, more things happen. I mean, it's not just us at our institute working on this project. We have been able to develop and to find these results because we have worked within a network that has been built during this time. At the beginning, we started working in this aging issue. We were the research centers related to the Basque health system, but as the years went ahead, we were able to increase the collaboration with universities at the Basque Country, with other departments of the health, with other departments of the Basque government, and also with other centers of research and innovation, as well as with citizens and aged people organization. Thanks to this time and to the need to collaborate to develop this and other projects, we now can say that we are part of a network, of an ecosystem that is working around aging research and innovation. And this network has been enforced by a number of initiatives, of programs, or other institutions that finally provided a strong framework for us to collaborate and to be actually a network. Regarding that, the framework, we are very happy because last year it was approved the new plan of science and technology for the Basque Country, where healthy aging is one of the strategic areas, and I am sure that this will be very useful to enforce and to strengthen the network of collaboration that we already have, this Basque ecosystem for aging research and innovation. And with this with this new strength, our next objective will be to be able to open this network of collaboration to more European and overseas stakeholders in order to be present in the next European initiatives related to aging research and innovation. And this is what I want to share with you. Thank you very much for your attention, and we will be happy to try to answer to all questions and suggestions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Itziar, for your presentation. We are really behind time now, so I'm going to run fast. I'm going to say hello to John Griffiths, who's the Technology Director and leads the development of the Safe House products. He was responsible for the conception and design of the Safe House system and sensors. He's a co-founder and CTO of Secure Sensors Innovative Design Ltd, the company behind Safe House technology. He has set up and successfully run several technology and consultancy companies over the last 30 years, including Griffiths Associates, which implemented the first cloud care support system for Bournemouth Borough Council. John specializes in healthcare technology, smart city development, and data center creation. And most recently, he was a technical specialist in the Department for International Trade for smart cities and Internet of Things with responsibility for the Far East. Welcome, John.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me, Maria?
I can indeed.
Right, shall I share my screen and move on?
Please, please.
Okay, let's just do this.
Thank you.
Teams. Got that?
We do.
Okay, great. Because we're short on time, I'll zoom on. Thank you very much for inviting me to talk today at this event. As Maria mentioned, I'm John Griffiths, somewhat of a checkered background, but more pertinent to today's meeting is that I was primary carer for my mother, who in 2003 contracted small vessel dementia. And she died in November 2018, making her the longest surviving dementia sufferer at home in the UK ever. She actually spent 66 years living in the same bedroom, and she actually gave birth to 3 children and only left the last 22 hours. What I did was I founded Safe House, Secure Sensory Innovative Design, in 2013, specifically to address not the fact that people have dementia, but the fact we can stop them getting it. So what is Safe House? Safe House is really the culmination of technology which addresses the stagnant issue of telecare. The fact that you don't need a pendant, you may not be able to reach an alarm button, and by the way, you get a stigma of being old by wearing it. Really not very attractive, and it really hasn't changed a lot over the last 20 years. So we redesigned the whole idea of healthcare using what I learned in IoT and using next generation technology, which is low power wide area networks. This is really important because actually it means you can roll out things at scale. Something I think we all struggle with in this area, and more importantly, economically work going forward. So rather than employing things like GSM technology to connect up homes and make smart homes, we use something called LoRa, which is a low power wide area network. And as such, we can roll out very large numbers of units at a very economical model. So what is Safe House? Safe House is an end-to-end IoT solution. Excuse me. Basically, it is a sensor hub, which is installed in the house and has uniquely the ability to have up to 8 low-energy Bluetooth sensors, which are open source. This means that you can actually build your own sensors and connect into Safe House. So it's got full the ability to be used for many years to come. Those sensors typically are light sensors, volatile organic compounds, temperature, humidity, but there's some basics that you have to know, which is if somebody's old, is the electricity on? Is the temperature within within an acceptable level? And most importantly, the humidity. Is a damp environment, which will affect their healthcare in the future. We connect that to our Viper, which is a software as a service, and various apps that we've developed. And what we do is we aim to keep your loved ones safe at home, long before they've actually got the dreaded dementia disease. So what is Safe House? It's really just a data aggregator. It allows sensors to be connected to a app via software as a service in the cloud, and it basically sits there and does all the things that you would do if you walked into the property and had a look around to check mum is all right. It allows things such as panic buttons to be different. You can see the stigma-free one at the bottom of the screen. We can have little sensors which are very unobtrusive, and we're not changing the way somebody lives. We're actually just putting things in that they'll probably forget about after time. And these sensors can be very, very accurate. At the bottom there we show a Bluetooth, a USB sensor. Now that USB sensor is quite often used in the bedroom to pick up things like light levels, sound levels, CO2 levels, which I'll come on to in a minute, volatile organic compounds, and noise. So what we can do is we can pick up a lot of information without actually really impinging on the person's life. So how does this work in practice? what you do is you end up with Safehouse Unit, which is the aggregator, and then you have sensors, which we call Safehouse environment sensors, normally in the kitchen, normally in the corridor, one in the bedroom, and one in the living room. And what then we do is we take the data from each one of those, which is temperature, humidity, movement, light levels, sound levels, and then we add that in our data model to door opening and door closing. So what we can do is we can actually indicate, just from those sensors itself, how somebody is coping and if they're okay. And so having done this, for example, you could leave the front door and then you could actually turn around and go back in the house. We'd know you'd gone back in the house by the fact the Safehouse sensor would have picked up movement. If the front door goes and you're not in the house, well, you won't go back inside, so we know you've actually left. Lots of really simple stuff which can actually help a lot. So what makes my home safer? First of all, invisible hazards. Things like, are you switching a light on when you get out of bed, which is really very important. Have you been actually opening the window to get CO2 out of the room? CO2 is a major poisoner and can actually attribute to falls due to the fact of incapacity. Things of that sort can easily be picked up from background monitoring. Health as well, associated with volatile organic compounds. We make sure that these are non-invasive. You really don't know they're there, which is so important to get user acceptance at scale. And we give confidence. We actually supply GPS buttons, which can be taken outside of the house. And if pressed, we call them assistance buttons. They allow somebody to actually turn around and get in contact via your mobile phone. If you don't answer it, we know where you are and help can be sent. And finally, we've built a falls detector, which is 95% accurate. It doesn't use broadband, it doesn't use cameras, and it doesn't use wearables. Very exciting, just been patented and due for rollout Q4 next year. So smart technology really does help. It gives you all that data, which the clever people in AI and machine learning can actually use and work to identify problems, even though they're not there and without having to put additional sensors in. In short, you can pull the data together and then all of a sudden start addressing these issues before they become issues. So what is this commercial model? Well, it's really easy. We've got 1.8 million people in the UK who have to change from the current telecare to a digital solution. There's a huge spend on social care, and most importantly, we can actually start early on adapting homes so that these things can be picked up very, very early before, hopefully treatable, before dementia has set in. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, John. We are going to jump very quickly to Carla Zaldúa. Last but not least, Carla is co-founder of Accessible in Spanish, a startup focused on disease detection through speech analysis. In 2020, Accessible received the Startup of Expansión Award in Health and Biotechnology, and the next steps are its expansion to the United Kingdom and the United States. She's one of the women entrepreneurs of reference in Spain in 2020, and she's going to present Accessible. The floor is yours, Carla.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah?
We can hear you, we can see you.
First of all, Maria, congratulate you for this session. It's been really interesting. And thank you for counting on us. And I'll be really short because we are really, well, we're out of time now. So I'll try to synthesize.
We still have debate and awards.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carla.
I'll shorten my presentation. And afterwards, if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Can you see my screen? Yeah?
Yes, we can, yes.
Okay, so we are accessible, and what we do in accessible is we identify speech biomarkers to early detect and monitor dementia. How does our platform work? Well, any person with a device that has an internet connection and a microphone can do a series of neuropsychological tests. For example, in 60 seconds, tell me all the animals that you can remember: dog, cat, mouse, and your answers are recorded and sent to our cloud. And there two things happen. On one side, we analyze the voice variables as tone, pitch, and on another side, we analyze the semantic part of it. What are you saying? And then in a couple of minutes, it gives back a result to the doctor. As I just explained, we have like a screening test of 60 seconds that have a really high accuracy of 93% accuracy that detects if a person is healthy or has. We are focused on mild cognitive impairment and early dementia when the first symptoms appear. And then we have a series of tests that are done, and it measures different cognitive functions like language, memory, and all that. It's processed, the voice part and the semantic part, and then it gives back a result, and you can also monitor, for example, the impact of a treatment in the cognitive functions of a person. This is an example of a graph of the results of a patient. That here the TERAD would be the word list that measures mostly memory, and the yellow bar stands for the patient's results, and the blue bar stands for the mean of healthy healthy persons. Here, as you can see, it clearly, so the closer you are to one, you're healthy. Here it's a healthy patient. And these are different tests that we do: the semantic verbal fluency tests, phonetic verbal fluency test. We also do a picture description test that here we use natural language processing techniques to analyze. And we are now working on open questions and analyzing what the person says. We are quite proud on our clinical validation results. We have a 99% specificity and 90% sensitivity in the overall model, and a 90% accuracy. We received the CE mark here in the European Union, and we have our models validated in Spanish, and we have our prototypes in English. And now we are working to run some pilots in the UK and also in the US. Right now, who is using our platform? Here in Spain, public and private day centers as a tool to detect and monitor dementia. Also private hospitals in the Basque Country mostly. And we are just starting a pilot with the public primary care health care system in Vizcaya, that they are going to use our tool in order, you go to the physician or to the primary care doctor, and they run these speech tests, and if it turns out positive that you might have a cognitive impairment or dementia, you go to the specialist. I would like to highlight as well that this is a screening tool and a tool to support the doctor's diagnosis. It's not a diagnostic tool, whatever. And this would be all.
Thank you, Carla. That was, I didn't expect the end. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Now we are going to have our Q&A and debate. I'm going to introduce Leire Madariaga, who will be explaining the BIND 4.0 program in a nutshell of the Basque government and leading our Q&A session. Lady has recently been appointed Director for Digital Transformation and Entrepreneurship at the Basque Government, and until then she was the Director for Foreign Affairs at the Basque Government President's Office since 2013. Lady, are you there? Are you ready?
Hello, Maria. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can see you. And so I will please ask you to explain in a nutshell Bind 4.0, and then if all our speakers can come on the screen so that we can have at least a couple of questions. I know we are running late, but at least a couple of questions and a little bit of debate would be fantastic. So, Lady, please go ahead.
Lady, can you hear me? We were part of the Bind as well.
I know, I know, a successful part of Bind. So first of all, Maria, I would like to thank the British Consulate, as always, for giving me this opportunity of finalizing this session. But first, briefly, as you were saying, I'd like to explain that the Basque Country, well, was ranked by the European Union as one of the leading innovation hubs in Southern Europe, and is one of the top regions for innovation in Spain. In fact, the Financial Times ranks the Basque Country as the most attractive mid-sized European region for foreign direct investments. And I think it's honest to say that we have a dynamic public administration that is concentrating its efforts to offer a perfect environment for attracting talent and startups. Our focus is to provide the vital ingredients to fostering entrepreneurial activities, ensuring access to talent, finance, and access to new customers and new markets, as well as support for enhancing business opportunities. In that sense, and Carla knows it very well, Bind 4.0 is a good example of that. It is an open innovation platform led by the Basque Government and powered by global companies, private companies with operations in the Basque Country. Bind provides an interface between industry-leading corporations and innovative tech startups in the fields of advanced manufacturing, smart energy, food tech, and of course, health tech, as we can see today with Accessible. The basis of the program is the partnership formed between startups and the corporate's business units. Bind 4.0 moderates a community for collaboration with focus on effective results. Should you be interested in knowing more about this initiative, because my intention was to be very, very brief, I will now post our website on the chat, and please feel free to contact us for any further information you may need. So after this advertisement, as Maria was saying, I would like to moderate a bit the session, and perhaps I think that you are all there. No, Maria, are they? Yes. We can't hear you, Maria. Now we cannot hear you.
Okay, I'm missing. I don't know if Malcolm's on the line. We've got Daniel. I think we've got them. Yeah, I think we've got a full house.
So I would like to start with an open question for all of you, and let's say a more general question. Which are the main obstacles for the transferring of technology in the health sector, and more specifically in aging population in this type of devices? From your experience, you have very successful stories, but which are the obstacles that you have identified? Anyone? Sarah, perhaps John, or okay, John, we can't hear you, John.
Okay, yes, the main obstacle that we found is the distinction between social care when somebody's well and the health service distinction of somebody being ill, because you don't actually become demented overnight. It's something that has a gradual movement to that. And as such, what we've discovered is that the interaction of the relatives is really, and carers and the circle of care is really important. And in order to do that, you really have to embrace today's technology and use things such as apps and engage the surrounding people prior to the person becoming ill. And this seems to be sadly neglected, and by the time the people actually realise there's a problem with that, it's normally too late to do anything other than address the problem, as opposed to try and solve its initial progression. So we've struggled for quite a long time, but we think now we're getting somewhere in actually getting acceptance with people that basic things in your home, such as temperature in your bedroom, humidity in your bedroom, activity through the property, without using wearables and without impinging on the person, is really the only way you can get acceptance for the data that you require to address the illness. That's been, and then when the illness appears, to get prompt attention to it. Hence, we've built a falls detector, which immediately indicates if somebody's fallen, not wait for confirmation. So I think there's definitely a link between healthcare services and social care, which has been a big divide, which I think we're just beginning to address.
Sarah, perhaps. Yes.
I just was adding a comment. I spelled world wrong, so I said real world. But I think one of the other challenges for commercial companies and SMEs that are developing technology in this sphere is navigating very complex data protection law, as well as getting sort of ethics and access to people who, in the case of dementia, are most vulnerable. And those that are most in need are the most vulnerable. So that this is where I think there's a real barrier between commercial advancement to address these bigger social needs that we're talking about.
I'd like to jump in with a comment.
Does anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to say that we, of course, are not a private company working on this, but rather we're trying to create a kind of supportive environment for the companies that are developing. And that aspect that was just mentioned about how do you secure data in a way that meets regulations and also ethical standards. And so I think that's a part of what we envision in terms of supporting a cohort of companies to create certain types of products, is that not only would they, the participants, or we could call them competitors in this competition, not only would they get grants and a final prize, but almost more importantly, they would get technical assistance or non-financial assistance to manage the data safely, and also have access to existing database that they maybe wouldn't have access to.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
There's one question posted on the chat that has been placed by Lucia Hablata, and it has partially been answered already by John in his presentation, but to the rest, how could this area become more attractive for companies to come up with more personalized and innovative solutions? Go on, John.
One of the things that has been holding back telecare, as we used to call it, is siloed companies and huge barriers to entry. And you just can't get the equipment, or if the equipment will only work with certain aspects. So you end up with a social care system, which is basically wedded to a call center and the equipment that can actually talk to that call center. That's all changing pretty rapidly now. And when we built Safehouse, the main thing we did was have an open source standard for sensors. So we're not great at building sensors, but somebody who is can connect to our whole system and extract that data. And the data is already, to answer the question before, is already actually validated to GDPR by consent of the individual, which we do as a matter of course, allowing them to give that information out, or allow other app users of Safehouse to actually access that information without the usual nightmare of forms and things of that sort. Once you've got that open standard, you then need to do something openly with the data. And that's very rare at the moment. If you know, in the traditional systems, they don't do that. Well, what we did is we actually stopped at that point and then said, okay, guys, if you want to use this data and you're registered to use this, you can actually have an API, and then that will work with any type of call center or any type of response system, opening up the market. The main issue relating to open standards is there are an awful lot of companies who've made a lot of money over the last 20 years, who in the UK at least will have to change in the next 5 years to a digital solution. And when they do change to that digital solution, there's normally an increase in cost as opposed to a decrease in cost. And that is a real problem for social services who have very little money. But what's great about that is that it allows smaller companies to come into that market and address the issues in a more flexible way, which is got to be great for the market.
Mm-hmm.
I would
perhaps
just add...
another question, and for Carla, and perhaps Malcolm. I know that we do try to do so, but how do you think can public institutions give support to this challenge? And more specifically, you as a new company or to universities, what do you think is needed to support, to give more strength to confront these new challenges that are so rapidly coming?
Yeah, can I go? Okay.
Yes, of course.
Well, from our point of view, that we are a startup, that we are very small, and everything, well, with in the public sphere, and mostly because it's health, that it has its reasons to be everything very secure and everything is really, really, really slow. And in order to survive for a startup, it takes you, well, it's very difficult to survive this path, no? I think that things like the bind or testbeds that you are now having in different places in the UK as well, that it's like faster, you skip some phases just to test your idea. And then although you go through all the walkthrough of ethics committee, the data privacy, doing everything really secure and really well, that it takes time. I think that skipping these parts just to test things and see if it makes sense, and then adapt it to the reality that you will have afterwards. I think that is very, very helpful for everybody, not just for innovation in startups, but also for the public health system, no, or the public arena.
That's fine.
I would agree with that.
Sarah, yes.
No, I was just going to say I would agree with Carla that we're seeing is this interesting merging of different frames of reference from traditional kind of medical research approaches of trials where something is an intervention or goes through very rigorous validation testing, and something that's much more iterative and around that kind of design engineering kind of approach, and which actually fits with quality improvement methodology as well, but it's looking at those two kind of sort of how those two approaches and frames of reference will overlap in order to accelerate some of the innovation within that healthcare setting.
Well, I'm afraid. Oh, sorry, Malcolm, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'll just add to that the importance of multidisciplinary research. We've seen this morning sensors, architects, Internet of Things, building physicists, ergonomists. It's a complex, multifaceted problem, and these challenges require a multidisciplinary approach. So I've been privileged to share a platform this morning with a number of different disciplines and to illustrate that.
I'm afraid for time. Telling me, please, you have to go to finalize. Thank you very much. for all of you. It's been a pleasure hearing you and knowing more about your initiatives and everything that you are doing. And now, Maria, I'll give the floor, I'll pass the floor back to you. Thank you so much for you too.
No, thank you, Lady. Excellently chaired. I knew. And thank you to all of you. Thank you, Malcolm, and Itier, and Sarah, and Daniel, and Carla, and John for your presentations and interventions. And this always happens with time. We're always back in time. That's why I'm so harsh with keeping with the presentations, but it's impossible sometimes. I would like to ask our colleague Elene to play the video that our ambassador Hugh Elliott has sent, because he can't be with us last minute thing, but he did want to show his support. And after that, I'm going to hand over to our director at DIT Bilbao, Nick Greenwood. So please, Elena, if you can play the video.
Good morning, everybody. I am really sorry, but I have, because of a last minute commitment, I find myself not able to be with you in person to present the awards this morning and to close out the workshops. But very kindly, Nick Greenwood, our Director for Investment and Trade in Northern Spain and our consul in Bilbao, is very kindly stepping in. But I did want to say personally, because I've been following these workshops from the beginning, that I think it's an excellent area of cooperation between the Basque Country and the UK. I've seen a lot of the pictures and the work you've been doing for myself. I think it's a really interesting area for cooperation. I congratulate you all on the pictures that you've made. And I really hope that the cooperation that we've started with these workshops goes from strength to strength. And my congratulations as well, particularly to the winners today, who I am not going to announce, but I will hand over now to Nick to do so. Thank you very much.
So, Nick, are you prepared to do the honors?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
And good morning. I'm a slightly less glamorous version of the ambassador, and a bit sweaty as well, because I was in the office and the connection failed, so I had to run home at high speed. And I'm still breathing in the carbon dioxide from my mask, so quite possibly, John, I will be setting off a few of your alarms right now, and you might be rushing around to resuscitate me, but hopefully I'll get my breath back. I just want to start by saying, I think this has been a really excellent another iteration of Healthy Aging Awards that Maria and the team have organised. I hope that all of you have found it as stimulating and interesting as I have. I've had the good fortune to be watching and waiting in the wings and putting a few questions in whilst proceedings have been going ahead. And I think it's been really interesting just to see all the best practices and new technologies that have been on trial. And I really hope that we can combine this sort of best of British and Basque innovation and try to come up with some interesting initiatives and opportunities for collaboration, both on a kind of commercial plane and also on a sort of research plane as well. I mean, just as a reminder, what we've seen over the course of the last 8 weeks for webinars has been sessions on homes, how we can design home fairly, design for products and services, mobility, and obviously dementia. And we've had with us really a top-class level of experts. We've had, the Connected Places Catapult, the National Innovation Centre for Aging, Biodonostia, Nesta. The list could go on, but I won't go on for too much longer. But I think what you can see is really the multiple impacts that healthy aging has. It's not just a concrete area, a concrete bit of the population, but really there are impacts that go, into mobility, into smart city design, into how you design a transport system, into diversity, and so forth. So really, very big thank you from my part to Maria for putting together this impressive agenda. Also to our colleague Lucia, who has been behind the scenes, making sure the technology works and managing it. And please do follow up with us. Maria has all the contacts in the right places, as you've seen. Please do make the most of us, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to help build those connections between the Basque Country and the UK and find those commercial opportunities. But without further ado, and more blather from me, it's time to announce the winners of this round of Healthy Aging webinars. I have to say it is a tough decision. We've been deliberating on it, debating on it for some time. Some of you may have tweaked the fact that I have 3 images on the side of my screen. So you may find that instead of having one British winner and one Basque winner, there might be a small surprise given some discrepancies that we had in terms of our, reaching a decision on who was the best. We just couldn't But really the criteria we've tried to apply in our panel to make a decision has been, first of all, looking at the quality of the presentation, and secondly, really focusing on where we think there might be applicability or a market gap for us. So that's the criteria we've used. Just a brief reminder on the prize. The prize is really a mission to go for the Basque companies to come to the UK and design a tailored agenda to meet some of the institutions and organisations that might be of interest to them, and the same for the UK. Obviously, right now we're not able to do that, but you have a kind of IOU from us that as soon as the COVID situation calms down a bit and we're able to travel as normal, then we will do so. So without further ado, the prize winners. So we have one winner from the British side, and I'm looking right at him in the camera. It's John from Safe House Technology. Many congratulations, John. We really enjoyed your pitch. You were the last to present, but by no means least. We really see some excellent application for that, and hope that we can find some opportunities for you in the Basque Country. On the Basque side, as I alluded to, there was a tough debate for us. We were supposed to pick one winner, but we just couldn't separate between two companies. So on the one hand, we'd like to give the prize to Accessible. We've just heard from Carla. But also we'd like to share the award with Irisbond, who we heard from in the previous session, and I'm sure you remember they have a really fascinating technology using eye tracking and artificial intelligence to help improve interaction for people who've maybe lost movement. So congratulations to both the Basque winners. You share the prize, but you can both go on a mission and both have a tailored set of visits. So I'd like to invite you all onto the screen and just to say congratulations again from our side for your pitches.
Have we got Irisbond and Accessible there? I'm just asking. I don't know. We've got John, but Carla and Eduardo, are you still on the line? I think they disappeared. Well, we'll have to announce them privately then.
Well, congratulations, John, in any case.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It's Nick, it's really a great honour to win such a prize, especially with a country that we've already been talking to quite significantly. We believe that the aspect of ageing is to prevent people becoming demented, and there are ways of doing that, but just using technology, not traditional technology, but really exciting technology, which can address, the large, in the UK, the 1.8 million people that we know could actually have 5+ years at home. That's what I want, and I'm getting closer to it, and I know that's the rest of my company feel the same way. So we would love to work and look forward to going to the Basque region and meeting all your contacts, Maria. And I know, as always, DIT does an extremely good job at this, so I really am doubly chuffed. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, Nick, for announcing the awards. And thank you to Lucia and Elene. Elene has done a lot behind the scenes with technology and with the presentations. And please don't miss the opportunity for the networking session on the 6th of May. I look forward to seeing you all there. And meanwhile, please, as Nick just said, use us for contacts and for any introductions, because really that can make a difference. So thanks a lot, and I hope to see you all soon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. That's a quote to take into account for the 6th of May, yeah?
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.